Hey everyone, welcome to A Mess Nonetheless. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Melissa, and we are sisters. And we're back again for episode 2 of season 2. What does this mean?
Every episode, we're back again. Here we are.
You didn't know, we are continuing to come back. You guys, we took a long break, and I'm being very clumsy and getting back into the groove of how we begin this, because we had to do our last episode beginning intro multiple times.
Yeah, and we've never needed to do it multiple times.
No, I don't know. My brain is tired.
No, you actually have to say something. You can't just sit there and look at me. So here we are again.
What are we talking? Okay, you guys, we are doing another mini series. So this will be the first of 4 episodes.
Yep.
Of a mini series we're going to talk about comparison.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that we could do without practice.
Right, exactly. The ad-libbing stuff. So last season, if you were with us, we did a mini series and people really liked it. And we did what's the word? A survey at the end of the season. And people said,
survey says
people would like more mini series. So here we are. Cause I was like, we can't start a mini series right off the bat. And Melissa's like, but why? And I was like, I don't know. It just came out of my mouth. So here we are.
Guys, not all things that come out of our mouth make any sense.
That's correct. So today we're just going to talk about kind of the broad spectrum of comparison. And then we're going to break it down into a couple of different topics where we specifically struggle with comparison. Last year, we definitely talked about body image and comparison a little bit. We touched on it. That was actually mostly comparing ourselves to a former body
of ourselves,
yes. our own former body and we didn't really talk about comparison that much as far as with other people's bodies. Yeah. Which is a good one. We should do that again, or we should dive into that, but
yeah, cause that's a big one.
It is a big one. Yeah. So, okay. So comparison, the thief of joy. Who said it? Do you remember? Who said comparison, the thief of joy?
Is this a test? I did not study for this test.
It's Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, really? I was like, Jesus?
I know. He didn't say that. No, he didn't. No,
I did not know Teddy Roosevelt said that.
Yeah, I love the phrase because it is true. It is true. So why is it so dangerous? We're going to talk about that today. Why is it so dangerous to live in a life of comparison? Got a couple points here.
Yeah.
First one, we only see the good in other people's lives. We don't see the blood, the sweat, the tears, the work, the decisions, the prayer that went into what has led them to have the thing or have the lifestyle that they have that you're comparing to.
Well, one of my favorite visuals for that is an iceberg. Only a tiny bit of an iceberg is seen above the water. There is so much more to the iceberg under the water that is never seen. Right. And I always think that's, we see the little top of the iceberg above the water of other people's lives. We don't see everything that went into making that iceberg come up out of the water. And so there's always so much more going on behind closed doors and under the surface and that we don't have a clue about.
Right. Well, I was telling Melissa, I was like, people could look at her life and be like, you have this big, beautiful Midwest home. And she does. And people could say, well, you have nice vehicles. And they do. And her husband has a plethora of snowmobiles.
About to have 5.
He's got a lot of snowmobiles.
He's been collecting them for years.
And it would be very easy to be like, well, why do they have those things? And I have this little house, or we drive old beaters, whatever. But Melissa and Bill lived, and they've shared this. She shared it so financially in a very
terrible,
precarious. Yeah. They've done the Dave Ramsey. They had business debt they had to get out of. And there were years where you were like, I cannot go out to dinner.
Right.
Ever.
Oh, yeah. There was years where $20 in my wallet could make or break my week because at least I have $20 so I can get some bread and I can get some milk if needed. And if I had no $20, then I would be,
you had to make everything in your pantry just stretch so far. And so, when I say you only see the good, or you can't see what all went on behind the surface, if somebody just met Melissa in the last few years, it could look like, they're not high living by any means. They just have some nice things.
Yeah.
And you could be like, oh, well, they just worked hard for it. But it's but no, you don't even know how hard they worked to get out of all of this, again, business debt. I know Melissa has shared that in the past. And, and other people could look at me, people who are going through infertility, and be like, oh, she has all these kids. And it's like, but if you weren't walking through it with me, you don't know how many adoption losses we had, how much money we had to spend, how many infertility treatments didn't work before some did. And that's the problem with comparison, is we don't know all the details behind the scenes. And honestly, don't need to.
Well, I love the phrase, we often compare our grit to someone's highlight reel. And
exactly.
Those are like literally comparing trees to fruit. Like they're not even in the same boat of anything.
Right.
And so,
or fruit to like the dirty roots.
Yeah.
Like, right. I dug out some dirty roots and well, that looks gross, but also the fruit is so
juicy and yummy. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, they all are part of the same process, but
yes.
Yeah. It's a bad example, but
no, I think that it is, especially in the world that we live in with social media, it's even easier now than ever to compare our grit to someone's highlight reel. Because even if you're honest and real on social media, like, you're still not going to show all of your garbage. I mean, you're not going to talk. I mean, even if I maybe would be real that Bill and I had a big fight, but I'm not going to go into what that fight looked like. And I'm not going to talk about how many fights we've had just like that in the last 25, it's like, I'm not going to give you all the details. And so, people, we can compare we can just compare everything, and it can drown us. It can sink us really fast.
Exactly. Well, in last episode, we talked about how when things are hard or inconvenient or frustrating, we have to focus on the good. We have to focus on the gratitude. And comparison is literally the opposite of that.
Yeah.
It is not focusing on what we have. It's focusing on what someone else has that we want.
Yeah.
And the truth is we always have stuff that other people want too. It's like, I'm looking at them. This person's looking at me. That is a train. And it's like, no one's ever going to be happy if we're just always looking at what
everyone else has because when we're always focused on what other people have, then we're going to completely miss what we do have. We're not going to be able, I think about we're going to break this down over the next couple episodes, but like in marriage, like if my husband's not very romantic, you guys, he's like, just not, he just cannot help himself, but he is super good with his words to me. Like he calls me amazing names and he pours life into me. He believes in everything I do. Like if I've ever been successful at anything, he has been my biggest cheerleader behind it. Well, so if I only looked at my friends who had really romantic husbands who do these really romantic gestures, I could easily miss that Bill is so great with his words. And because I would be like, but he never ever just surprises me. He never does this or never, doesn't bring me flowers or whatever it is that's romantic. I don't even know anymore, to be honest.
And it's true. He doesn't bring me flowers, but he did bring you a pretty anniversary ring.
Oh, he did. You guys, if you're on YouTube, you probably can't see it very well.
Their 25th, right?
We just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, and he bought me an anniversary band that surprised me with it. I had no idea. And the cutest part about the story is that he's a truck driver, and in order for him to get the jewelry store is only open during the day, so in order for him to get there, he had to go in his semi, but there was not a place close to park, so he had to park like 1.5 miles away. So he walked 3 miles round trip to get my ring. And I just
so sweet. I just love that. I love it.
I guess he can be a little romantic now and then. But my point is that if I only focused on what he didn't do for me, I would miss what he does do for me.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So the second point we're going to talk about is we're all called to run our own races. And honestly, other people's business and their calling and their lives are not meant for us. We are not all meant to have the exact same things, the exact same timelines, the exact same callings, the exact same marriages, the amount of kids we have or don't have. We are not all going to have the same things. And
stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. Yes, exactly. Okay. So there's this story in John 21 and I just love it. So Jesus is like telling Peter basically like, this is what your race is going to look like. This is the journey of your path. And then he's like, you're going to be used to shepherd the early church. And ultimately you're going to be led where you don't want to go. Death. Yeah. And Jesus looks at him and says, follow me. And Peter does not jump up and say, yes, Lord, I'm going to fix my eyes on you and run the race you have before me. Instead, he gestures to John and goes, well, what about him?
Yeah.
Jesus is like, he doesn't say, well, that's, no. He's literally like, what concern is that of yours? You follow me. That's what he said. You follow me. I'm sorry. We're not talking about him or her or them. We are talking about you and me. And this is that we were talking about this last episode. It's like, fix our eyes on Jesus, zoom in with that big lens, focus on him. It really doesn't matter what other people are doing.
Yep. It's so true. Yeah. Well, and why is it important to not compare? I mean, it seems kind of self-explanatory, but I think that because comparison, I think, is kind of a natural embedded thing in all of us, I think it's important to know why we need to stay away from comparison.
Right.
Because it just starts to destroy us. I mean, it destroys relationships, because if I look at other people's relationships with their sisters, and I see something that they have that I don't have with my relationship with my sister.
Rude.
And
why was that your example?
Because I'm looking at you.
Why though?
and if I'm
what exactly are you missing in your relationship with your sister?
Okay, so she's bitter. So, just gonna keep talking.
Just teasing. Okay, so anyways, these people who have these amazing sisters you don't have.
That I don't have. And I mean, the thing is that I have the most amazing relationship with my sister. So if I spend any amount of time being jealous of anyone else's relationship, I'm only going to hurt my relationship with my sister, because suddenly I'm going to feel sorry for myself that, oh, well, she doesn't do this for me, but that sister does that for that sister. You know, those kind of things that it eats at our relationships. And and so it's just very damaging.
Well, our third point is literally no one is happier by comparing themselves to other people.
Correct.
I mean, there is not a single person who's like, I spent some time comparing myself to other people and what they have and what I don't have, and then I was happier for it. Now, I guess that's not entirely true. It could be I compare myself and I was so happy with what I have.
Sure, but we're not talking about that.
No, and that's ugly.
That is ugly too.
Not good either. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about comparing like what we don't have, what we're lacking, quote unquote, we think we're lacking in life and other people have. No one is happier for that.
No.
It literally only makes us more miserable.
I am sure there's not a single person who has been dying and said, I wish I would have spent more time comparing myself to other people.
Correct. I do love thinking about those deathbed things. Like, it really puts things into perspective.
It does. It does.
What are we thinking about at the end of our life? Not how big somebody's house was or how much money they have or how many vacations. That's not what we're thinking about. And if we are, well, that is really sad. Really sad.
Right. Yeah. No. And when we are comparing to other people, not only are we not ever happier, but we get more sadder.
That's the opposite of not being happy or of happy. You can't hear her. She's laughing so hard. She literally has gone mute. If you're watching on YouTube,
I feel very eloquent with my words today, and I just proved it right there.
Because then you get more sadder.
I don't want to be more sadder.
No, I don't want to be more sadder either. Nobody wants to be miserable. And like, that's not good for people around us either. Like, you know, think about our spouses. So whether you have two incomes or one, most people's husband, if you're married, does work. Like most people, that's like a very high percentage of people. And so whether you contribute or not financially, like either way, if your husband works and you're always complaining about what everyone else has, it's like, is that going to make him feel validated as a husband,
right,
or as a partner, you know? Or if you're always, it's correct. You will be more sadder.
You will be more sadder. And so will he.
And so will he. Yeah. And it's going to bring like strife and tension between you. And if you're always focused on what other people's kids are achieving, is that going to make our kids feel better about themselves?
No, it's going to make them feel terrible.
Exactly. And if you're always talking about how great other people's sisters are, is that going to make your sister feel good?
Apparently it does not.
No. I know she was just using that as an example. And I know she doesn't spend any time thinking about how great other people's sisters are.
Single second ever.
I know. So I love the verse in Galatians 6:4-5. Each one should test their own actions. They can take pride in themselves alone without comparing them to someone else. For each should carry their own load. And that's that whole, we're all called to run our own race. Like, it's our responsibility to be good stewards of the money that we've been given. We all live in different parts of the country. Like your money goes in different, it goes further in other parts of the country and less. And it's like, it really doesn't matter. God has called us to, or if he's called us to live where we live, you know, assume that that's a faith thing, and everyone has to use their money, use their resources, use their time in the way that they feel they're supposed to.
Mhm.
And the truth is if someone is using their stuff wrong, which we do all the time, that really is no business of ours either.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
we're not anybody's Holy Spirit, and that's
Right.
not our job to convict them.
Correct.
So yeah, basically at the end of the day, comparison literally only makes everything worse.
Yes. And more sadder.
And more sadder. Welcome to a mess nonetheless. We always say everything super, super great. We say it more good here.
We do say it more gooder. More gooder.
Gosh. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about through this mini series is comparison and why it really only serves to hurt us. And it does not help our relationships at all. And now Melissa and I, we haven't said this and maybe we should. This is again, not an issue that we would say we have completely mastered.
Right.
Some of us are further along in this journey than others of us. And it is Melissa. She's further along in this journey than me.
I am older, you guys. I've had lots more years to practice things than Rachel. So
lots, 5, but yeah, lots. But I will say what's interesting about like me is that I did not struggle with comparison, like in high school or college, like in my marriage, like in my early or in my 20s. Like I really didn't struggle in general with comparison until I did.
Yeah.
And when I did, it's like there was some garbage rooted in there that hadn't really made such an appearance. And when it did, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so gross. I hate the feeling. It feels dirty. And so I have spent the last few years, working on the gratitude piece that we talked about last week and not looking at the negative all the time, focusing on the positive, but also this is all tied into this like gratitude and this joy pieces, not caring about other people's races or, what other people have or what they're given, because if that's between them and God, and it literally only makes my life more miserable and those around me.
Yeah, it does. It's a, yeah. And it's really natural to compare at different stages in your life differently. Like when you are in your early 20s or mid 20s and like you're starting to get married and you're starting to have kids, like it's easy to compare, like they seem to have more than I do, or they get to go on more vacations than I do, or they have more kids than I do, or their kids seem better behaved than I do, or their husband seems more loving or whatever. And then, and I'm in, I'm good. I'm 45. And so I'm headed into this place in life where it's easy to look at other people my age and be like, oh, we're not as far along as they are. Or, we don't own 2 properties, or it's just easy to start comparing. And then at our mom's age, it's going to be like a whole different level of, list of things that's easy to compare to. And so it's not necessarily like you get it conquered and you're done, because it's a evolving process throughout your life. Yeah. And so it's just really good to always be aware of it so that you can keep it at bay, because
each one should test their own actions kind of consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, not kind of, definitely consistently.
By kind of, I mean, for sure.
By kind of, yeah, for sure. So do we have a challenge for people as we start this mini-series?
Well, I think that it would be good to just kind of start thinking through, where do you have points of comparison in your life that you struggle with? And,
thinking we're going to and acknowledging.
Yeah.
Admitting is the first step.
It is. And then stick with us through the rest of it, because we're going to talk about comparing with finances, money, things like that. We're going to talk about comparing with spouses, relationships, that kind of thing. And then what else are we doing? I don't remember.
Parenting.
Thank you. I'm not looking at her notes. I forgot to open them up.
She's never looking at her notes. Let's just be honest.
It's true.
We had like 34 episodes last year. How many times do you think you had those notes open and utilized them?
Oh, once. And it's because
glad I spend all the time. No, I write the notes for myself.
It's because I knew I had to read like every other line of something. And so I had to have it. My brain doesn't function well having notes in front of me. Like when I speak, the least amount of notes I have, the better. Like I have to have bullet points, and that's kind of it. Yeah. And I always have bullet points in my brain coming into this. And so it's just how I work. I get distracted, and then I feel like I'm not really speaking freely or
freelier.
Freelier.
Did you say freelier?
No, I said freely or.
Oh, because I was like, is this like more sadder?
Yes. Although today having no notes is not helping me speak freelier.
No, there's no freelier happening here. So, okay. So that's our challenge. I'm realizing we don't have a ministry to spotlight yet, because we are asking people now to start submitting them. So
yeah,
if you want your little plug, we are happy to do it.
Yes,
So
we are.
just shoot us a message or hit us up. Last time I said,
yes,
shoot us up. I don't mean that.
We do not promote shooting people.
We do. That's true. We do not promote shooting
We want
people.
that to be known.
You say, let that be known.
Yes.
All right, you guys have
All right.
a great week. We always love to hear from people, and we're excited to see you in our community group.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.
You might feel that your life is a mess, but don't feel bad. Ours is too, but we own a microphone and we have no shame. That's why we'll talk about how our life is a mess nonetheless. That's the name of our podcast.